Welcome to another episode of The Marrow Show, presented by Marrow Ministries, hosted by Luke Walker, Nick Kennicott, and Alexander Wade.
What's up, everybody? This is The Marrow Show. I'm your host, Luke Walker, and I'm here with Pastors Alexander Wade and Nick Kennicott. This is episode 2 of our breakdown from these guys' trip to Nigeria and ministering there. And so we're going over some of the stories and some of the hard work and even some of the difficulties that they faced there. So on that note, you guys, looking back at this trip, what were some of the most difficult things this time around, Nick, or this time for you, Wade?
Well, that's hard to say. I think because I've been there so much that I sort of I know what to expect and what to anticipate. I guess. So
you're immune.
Yeah, I don't know. In terms of the travel, I'm used to it. I know what it is. It's not fun, but it's what it is. The heat I'm used to. Not a big deal for me as it is for Wade. I'm also about half his size, so that makes a big difference. I think that maybe the most difficult thing each and every time for me is just navigating the relational aspect of everything, because there are so many things that have to get done and so many relationships that have to be built in the middle of that. You're also working through discerning, is the person I'm relating to right now, are they trustworthy? Are they trying to take advantage of me because they know that our economic situation is better and we have funds? And so, when I'm, for example, when I'm negotiating work for our building project, are they quoting me something far higher than they would quote a Nigerian? And so that's where we have to get our Nigerian lawyer involved and some of my staff and faculty. We actually haven't mentioned, but our main guy on the ground is a guy by the name of Olamide Falashe, who I've actually interviewed in previous episodes about certain situations that have happened there politically. But Olamide is very helpful in all of that. But it is tough. So I think that's always the difficulty, is just managing the relationships and making sure, we don't offend anybody, but at the same time that we're not getting taken advantage of either.
What about you, Wade? Was the trip tough at all, or pure exhilaration?
Oh man, the tough parts definitely, going back to Nick's comment about me being twice his size. I mean, let me tell you, that was a variable that impacted me every step of the way. All right, it impacted me on the plane. It impacted me on the train. It impacted me in the car, whether we was driving near or far, bro. It was hot and tight everywhere we went, man. So that was tough, and it was so long. Like the journey in, It was, man, some of those flights, man, it was just like, all right, man, I'm stuck. I'm here. And then the sweat, it was embarrassing. I wasn't embarrassed. Let me not say I was embarrassed, but it was a lot of sweat, man. I wasn't even moist, man. I was just wet, like everywhere we went, man, like drenched.
I understand. That was my trip, yo.
So, man, just struggling with that. Man, what else was tough? I think there were a couple of things just kind of where it was tough to take in just some of the conditions that people have to deal with there, and observing it and just knowing that there's no quick fix for some of the stuff that you're looking at. And so that was kind of just more of a mental and emotional thing that was tough. I think, I spent some time in India, in some of the really rural parts of India. So I think if not for my time there, this probably would have been much more shocking to me than than it was. But that was tough, man. The workload was tough, but it was good. I was tired, but I was satisfied with the work. So those were all good things.
Yeah.
And then leaving was tough. It was weird because as much as I wanted to complain about how hot I was and how crammed I was and how many of the comforts I didn't have and stuff like that, man, the process of, in just a short period of time, man, those guys, man, I feel like I made friends over there, and that even now, I think, man, like we had fun, man. I got to watch Pootie Tang with Nigerians in Nigeria, bro. Like, come on now, we're bonded for life. You know what I'm saying? So, they never even seen Pootie Tang, man. They didn't even know about the glories of Pootie Tang. You know what I'm saying? And it was great, man. So we shared some good moments, man. And so leaving was tough, man. It was like a slow, arduous journey out of Nigeria. But the further I got away from Nigeria, the more I realized, like, man, I'm going to miss these people. I'm going to miss this place. It was good work. So, and who knows, man, Lord willing, I'll be able to visit again.
Amen.
That's a blessing, making those connections and really lifelong friendships. It sounds like, you get out of that. That's awesome.
Yo, Olamide, I knew that I was going to like him. I didn't know I was going to like him that much. He's way cooler than, he's way cooler than, he don't let you know how cool he is. You know what I'm saying? That's a cool dude right there. We didn't give Larry a shout out either. Larry, another guy who works for IPTT, he's on the ground all the time. Truthfully, he probably is if I don't know, he's giving Olamide a run for his money in terms of MVP. You got 2 MVPs over there, man. So, but yeah, another good brother over there.
Amen. Yeah. So Larry, I call him Larry. His name is Lanry. But he became a first-year student a few years ago, and right away we recognized he was going to be a gem, so we hired him. So he works as an assistant to Olamide, and man, he gets stuff done. One of the good things is he is a local to the community where the school is. Olamide is not. Olamide came in from another place to work there for us, but Larry knows everybody, and he knows where to get things and who to talk to, and man, he hit the ground running, and he hasn't slowed down. He's been a great blessing. But I'll just mention one other thing, Luke. You asked about challenges. Just again, to give some perspective on the situation and kind of where we are located. Wade had mentioned the city that we flew into before we went to Egbe, which is where our school is. It's called Ilorin. It's a small city compared to some of the other cities, but it is a city. Because I have tried all of the Nigerian food and do not really like any of it, several years ago, I decided any of the meals we have, we're going to prepare ourselves. But the difficulty with that is I have to plan out what those meals are going to be all in advance, because we have to go to a grocery store that has about half of what I want in Ilorin, and then transport it about 2.5 hours to Egbe, store it in a little dorm room fridge and a large ice chest freezer. But remember, the power is on and off all throughout the day. So just keeping food fresh and then preparing it on a little 2-burner stove, no oven, and the quality wasn't really great in the first place compared to what we're used to. So just something as sort of mundane we think about here. We prepare meals at home every day, and it's no big deal. It's just sort of second nature. You go to the fridge, pull out what you want, it's ready to go in 2 or 3 minutes. Everything there is a chore. It's a challenge. There was a Nigerian journalist who used to be quite critical of the nation, and eventually he was assassinated for some of his views. But he wrote an article back in the early 2000s, and a line he wrote really stuck out to me. He said, "To live a day in Nigeria is to die 1,000 deaths." And he wrote about the challenges of everyday life. To do one thing just drains you completely because it takes so much effort. And what Wade is saying about the people and missing them and loving them, but in the midst of that, all of the challenges that arise, I've described Nigeria for myself as a place I love to hate and hate to love. But I can't not keep going back. And as I've mentioned, some of my best friends in the world are Nigerians, and I miss them dearly, and I talk to them weekly. So it is a sort of mismatch of emotions that you're not typically accustomed with, and so on that sort of lane, I am constantly drained, and when I come home, I'm exhausted for weeks because I'm just trying to catch up, not only physically but emotionally, from everything that's happened.
Well, you really are invested. That's a real blessing, bro. See the fruit over the years, so you got to be encouraged by that.
Yeah, amen.
Wade, I wanted to go back to something you said a little bit ago. Is that you had taken a trip to India previously. So my first real out of the country, out of the first world trip was when I went to Kenya. So it did have some shock value to me coming back to the U.S. But maybe you could talk a little bit about what it was like coming back from India, or Nigeria, coming back to the U.S. with the infrastructure we have here and everything we have here. What was that experience like?
You know, I think that's what people think is like the most obvious change is like, oh man, you leave this country and you come back to the US and you think about, how developed the US is and the comforts we have, different things like that. And it's just a huge change. That whether it was India or whether it was Nigeria, neither one of those things was the biggest adjustment for me. It really didn't have to do with any of the comforts or how developed it was. I think it was I think it was I think it has to do with simplicity is the best way I could put it. Just how simple things are in other parts of the world. And the people aren't simple, but it's like over here, like a lot of these like conversations we have, these theological debates we have about stuff, like, man, like these are arguments that are only possible in the context of abundance. Like these are things we argue about because there's churches on every other corner and there's 150 denominations to choose from, and you can just choose nothing. You can just be an atheist, or whatever. Where you go to India or Nigeria, and it's like atheism is not even up for consideration. It's like people are going like God is assumed. Now, which one? That's the conversation. But then once people become convinced of the God of the Bible, like, man, these are people who are already living sacrificial lives, who already, had habits and disciplines that were crafted over generations that were dedicated to false gods. But that same discipline, that same dedication, devotion, all that stuff, man, they bring that stuff to Christianity like instantly. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. It's like, oh, God is real. I'm convinced that the Bible is His word. This is what it says to do and how to live. It's like, it's that simple, right? It's not a whole bunch of why this, why that. Well, like, man. So to see something like that in India, for example, to share the gospel, and people either accepted it or they rejected it. But when they accepted it, it was all in and it spread like wildfire. They immediately became evangelists. So, man, things are just more simple in those contexts, man. And I think that's the most shocking thing. And then to come back here, and everything's more complex. Not just conversations and arguments, but even just practical stuff, man. Over there, man, stuff. When I say simple, like Nick was talking about how stuff is hard over there. It's like, yo, like if I want to transport something from here to my friend's house, man, I'll get it, put it in the car, drive over there, drop it off, whatever. Man, over there, they're gonna get it there, but you're gonna see somebody like they're doing like superhuman feats. Like all the time in like flip flops, and I'm like, yo, they're going 10 miles, just carrying just carrying a whole nother person's life on their back, to go drop it. It's like, yo, how are these people doing this stuff, man? It's it's fascinating, man. So, which was one of the things I that I was able to leverage in my hermeneutics class, because they would try to take these shortcuts in their studies. Do we have to do hermeneutics all the time? And I said, man, Nigerian people are some of the hardest working people I've ever seen. Why would you choose to be lazy in your scholarship? And they were like, it was like a challenge couched in a compliment, but I think they heard that, and I wasn't making it up, man. You go there for any period of time, you'll see, man, everybody's working hard. It's not a choice. There's no choice. You have to work hard every single day, all day, just to wake up.
Word.
Yeah, man, things are really simple over there. I need this, I'm gonna go work, and some people are working, people were working on the roads are in shambles. You had people working on the roads who weren't employed by anyone to work on the roads. They're just working on the roads because it needs to get done, and they hope that the people who use the roads will stop and give them some money because they're just working on the roads.
That sounds like Nick's just ideal state of affairs in the libertarian don't pay for roads with taxes. That sounds like that is really the utopia.
Well, the same thing happens there that happens here. The people actually do pay taxes, but they don't go towards the things they're supposed to go toward.
Touche.
It's like, where do our taxes go?
Let me pick up on something that Wade was talking about, because I think a big part of the story, and one of the main reasons we started doing this in the first place, and why I really pressed on with getting the school going, is the theological situation there. And for me, it wasn't just that men didn't have opportunities for training, but they were pastoring churches. But it's even more so the kind of theology that made its way into Nigeria. And because Nigeria is the largest population in all of Africa, has the largest city, 5 of the 10 richest pastors in the world all are in Nigeria. Word of faith, prosperity preaching is the main line of theology in every denomination in Nigeria. And so when I recognized that, which is pretty hard to miss almost immediately, I realized there's a lot of work to do. And the thing, it's challenging in some ways, but over time it becomes a little less difficult, because you know what issues to anticipate. They're always going to ask the same questions, no matter who it is. They're going to have the same concerns theologically. But beyond that, then, the thing, like Wade was talking about, in terms of the simplicity and people's just inherent trust in the Bible, the thing I love about teaching there is if you can show them it's in the scriptures, and you can make a good reasoned defense of whatever position it is that you're trying to show them, they will embrace it. They will believe it. And it's not like, a lot of Americans wanting to argue everything under the sun that might not even have anything to do with the thing you're trying to raise. It is much more simple in that way, but it's also really neat to see how quickly they're willing to embrace something, because they see, oh, it's in the Bible. We've always understood this the wrong way, but you've shown us from the scriptures, you've reasoned it properly, so how could we disagree with this? Now, as a result of that, some of our students have, we had one who was planning a church. He shut it down because he said, we didn't plant this properly. This isn't how it's supposed to be done. The theology's junk, so we're just going to close it. Other guys have lost their pastoral positions because they refused to continue to preach what they were preaching before in the way that they were doing it. So, the things we're doing there have real world effects, which is in a place where people are struggling to get by. It's a fearful thing to step into that, knowing that, one, we are teaching them what we believe to be true. But if they embrace that and continue that, they're about to lose their livelihood if they're not careful. So that's a challenging balancing act for us to play as well. So I really take that very seriously. And anytime we teach anything, I'm very careful about who we ask to go and do that. And so it speaks very highly of Alexander Wade and Chris Marley that I'd have them come and teach anything at all.
Praise the Lord. Yo, Wade, we're running out of time here, but I wanted to also hear from you about. We talked a little bit about this, but not really. Like, what was it like for you to go to Africa, being of African descent, and the descendant of stolen peoples, and being part of the diaspora? What was it? Was it was it an amazing experience to go back? What was it like for you on that front?
Oh yeah. Yeah, man. So that's the funny thing, man. Even your sentence was an amazing experience to go back. Like I never been, I can't even call it back. I've never been, you know what I'm saying? Like, so when I went, I had that in mind, but I really was primarily focused on the gospel work that I was going to be participating in. That really was my primary thing, because Africa is a massive continent. So, it was like, okay, I know that I am a descendant of Africans via the slave trade. I know that much. I've done that much of my research on my family history. But to narrow it down to a massive continent, it's still like,
word.
Like I'm getting closer, but like how close am I really getting, So, but then once I got there, and man, the first city we went to, people thought I was Nigerian. I'm like, what you mean? People thought it was hard to even process Nigerians. In my mind, I had an idea what Nigerians look like, and they don't like me. And then go to another city, man, it happened again. Go to another city, it happened again. We'd be hanging out in airports, and people would come up and start talking to me. I'm like, you need to go talk to the white man over there, man. I don't know what you're talking about. You know what I'm saying?
Dude, that was hold on. That was one of my favorite things. Is everywhere we went, people would start talking to Wade, and he looks at me like I'm the Nigerian translator, because I know what they're saying and how they're talking. Wade had no idea.
I'm like, what does she want? I don't know, bro. And, so, but the fact that, people would assume that I was Nigerian, so it kept begging the question. So I started, I started asking more
you
questions.
Have to tell them about your twin.
Bro, no, you you got to tell them about my twin, because, I might be biased, but we saw this dude in the airport, bro. This dude was me. Like, I don't know where they cloning people at, but I don't think they intended for the clones to meet. But bruh, we met in the airport near baggage claim. Bruh, we didn't get a chance to talk. We were gonna try and get him, but man, he was out of there too quick. We didn't get him. We was looking at each other.
He was behind me walking into the airport, and I turned around to say something to Wade, and I saw this dude and was about to start talking to him. And I was like, wait a second, that's not him. And then I told Chris, I'm like, that dude looks like Wade. He's like, he looks exactly like Wade. And then I told Wade, that dude looks like you. And Wade said, yeah, he looks exactly like me. Glasses, beard, everything.
It was scary. I have never seen a person, even in my own family, that looked that much like me. And at that point, I was like, yo, I might be Nigerian for real then. I was like, yo, so people, I thought I was light skinned because of, some type of
mixture
that happened over here. But then they was like, oh, you look Igbo. I'm like, man, what do Igbo people look like? Somebody said, exactly like you. I said, what you talking about? And bruh, man, I Googled some Igbo men, bruh. It's a whole group of light skinned brothers that look like me over there, man. I was like, oh snap. I'm talking the same build, body type, all of that. I'm like, yo, this is crazy. Wow. And then I learned that 70% of the slaves in the Americas that came from Nigeria and Angola. So now I'm like, oh my goodness, mathematically it's more likely than not. So it really got my wheels turning, and because of that, it made it a really impactful trip on a personal level. So I feel like I accidentally
Yeah.
stumbled in, and then everybody was just so welcoming. It's like, oh no, you're like me. I'm like, man, is this it? And everybody's like, no, you're Nigerian, bro. Like all the Nigerians was like, you are Nigerian. I'm like, yo, this is crazy. So, man, it's got my wheels turning, man. I'm gonna do me a little 23 and me or something like that, and see if I can get some data.
Yeah, so like extra blessings on top of it. But as you're talking, it reminds me of when I go back to my homeland of New York City, and everyone's always stopping me there asking for directions.
I
So
thought
because
I
they
thought
think,
your
oh, that's where
homeland
I'm
would be
from.
like Iceland or Norway.
Yeah, maybe both. All right. Thank you, brothers, for taking some time to go, just reflect on the journey that you had there and the good hard work that was done. And on behalf of all the brothers there and just the church in general, thank you for your service. Sounds like a labor of love, really. Going there, ministering, and the fruit of that will only be seen in eternity, how far that reaches. So you guys got to be feeling encouraged about that also. So thanks for tuning in,
Yes, yes, yes.
everybody. This has been the Marrow Show. I'm Luke Walker, Alexander Wade, Nick Kennicott, and we'll catch you guys next time. All right.